Hello and welcome to our first episode of Taco Science. And I thought I'd tackle a big one today. So we're doing the film Gravity. So where to start? There are lots of things wrong with Gravity that are incorrect, and there's probably a load of people out here who are going to say, "Oh, you missed this, you missed this." I'm just doing a small amount of the things that are wrong with Gravity. And the first big thing, I think, which ruins the whole plot line is about the satellite that was supposedly shot down in a low Earth orbit. But all the other satellites, like your communication satellites, the ISS station, are either much higher or lower than the Russian satellite. For example, if a satellite crashed just to stop this sort of thing happening. Therefore, the plot line wouldn't be able to happen with that. But let's say, basically you complete, let's say that all the satellites were on the same orbit because the person who made them was a complete twonk. One of the other things is distance. So, like I said, all the satellites are massively distanced apart. So in the scenes when they're travelling from space station to space station with just a jetpack, it's not going to be likely at all because there's one, you don't have enough fuel in the jetpack. Two, you might do if you aimed amazingly, but that would be the most amazing aiming ever, and you'd be like jetpack ninja warrior of the year type thing. But and three, also gravity would affect you while you're going there, like the movie. But as it seems in this movie, that doesn't trouble them. Also in this movie, so due to the non-gravity, well, not non-gravity, gravity, I don't know what to say, the lack of the effect of gravity on the human body. So many people are going to write hates in the comments for me saying that. But everyone seems to be hitting into things at a pretty alarmingly quick speed, and with the lack of effects of gravity on the body and the lack of friction or anything to slow you down, then all of them would be pretty mucked up early on from smashing into them. But I suppose, according to Hollywood, we just wouldn't have the same sexy Sandra Bullock if her face was all mashed up and stuck in a spaceship that was slowly falling towards the ground. There's many other things, like for example, one of my most hated lines in this film. I generally hate this film just because of the science implications, because I pick films apart like that. But one of my most hated lines in this film is, "It's not rocket science, just point your spaceship at the ground." And if there's any physicists out here, or people with general knowledge of gravity, unlike the film having general knowledge of gravity, even though it's called that, they would realise that, well, for one, for starters, it is rocket science. That's probably just a joke on their behalf. But also, if you point a spaceship directly towards the ground, I will see if I can pull up a picture now. It will make your periapsis of your orbit, or the lower bit, or bigger bit. I always get mixed up with periapsis and whatever the other one is. It will push it further away, which will actually make your orbit bigger. Whereas if you go directly opposite direction from where you're moving, then it'll slow your orbit down enough so you can sink slowly back down into the Earth's atmosphere with horrible burning things if you don't get it right. They did get a few things right, like NASA did start developing a jetpack or thing, or oxygen thing that George Clooney was using, but then they stopped it, and I have no clue why. I've got to look that up and put that in the comments. Also, then them doing spacewalks and coming in and out of the space ship like it was just a simple door you could open. Like diving, much like diving, when you come in and out of a spaceship, you have to go in a decompression chamber to make sure you don't get the bends, which is a horrible disease when nitric forms bubbles in your bloodstream, I believe, and it kills you. And the final, not the final thing, one of the things I was going to say also was in the scene when George Clooney opens the door to the space shuttle. I'm probably not going in order here, that's probably going to annoy a load of you. But, he just opens it, and she's fine. Yes, you can survive in the vacuum of space for about 30 seconds. Probably not the heat. She might die from the heat. Let's just say the heat stays the same. It's a lovely warm day in space, as it usually is. No, I'm just messing with you. But, she would be sucked out by the instant change of pressure, and she'd be jettisoned into space. But her head wouldn't explode, and her body wouldn't explode. Her body would be fine, apart from some small swelling. Also, the scene that's meant to create a load of tension, when Clooney's holding on for dear life with no fuel inject pack, and Bullock is holding onto Clooney with rope, and she's got no oxygen. Because it's space, and they're literally on a straight line, travelling what seems to be the same speed, all Bullock would have to do is pull gently, and then Clooney would come slowly floating towards her, where she could catch them, they could go back in the spaceship, and it all be fine, rather than having this unknown force suddenly rip him out of the rope and threaten to snap it. Also, she's just come down from space. I mean, she probably got rocketed around, let alone knocked out by the G-force on re-entry. And then also, because of space, her muscles were being deteriorated, and she lands in a lake and opens the door, just have another death-defying stunt, because Hollywood, and she somehow swims to safety in a spacesuit, mind you. Is she in the spacesuit at that point? I think she takes it off. But, she swims out in spacesuit, which, if she'd spent a long time in space, let's just assume that she got through that, because otherwise it just ruined the plot line. Let's just assume it was the beginning of the mission when it all went wrong. But if she did spend a lot of time in space, then her muscles and bone structure would have weakened due to the lack of effective gravity on the human body, meaning that the muscles wouldn't have to be exercised, so they would deteriorate. So when she came back, she'd just kind of maybe just flop about in the water a bit. And all the sad scenes where Bullock's crying. Tears don't come away from your eyes in space because of water pressure, trying to make the water into the smallest shape possible. They form in like kind of ball shapes around your eyes. There's I think someone did crying in space. I can't remember who it was. I can't remember. But yeah, it'll just stick to your face. Which also, well, they didn't know me at the time because I didn't know this. Had to do some research. And also in the first place, it probably, because of both the space shuttles moving, wouldn't have taken you wouldn't have met them on a regular, you wouldn't have met the debris on a regular 90-minute basis. And also ever so likely that when she re-entered atmosphere in the orbit pod, because it was just chucked in the atmosphere somewhere over the sea, that they knew it'd land in the sea, because they didn't want it like to have a perfect deorbit where it wouldn't get damaged, because they were getting rid of it anyway. So it'd probably be so her shuttle that she was in would probably be damaged, if not destroyed, by landing down, by falling down all that way through space and surviving the heat. Well, this is the first shot of our Taco Science, Taco Web Science, but I'm sure to add more in the future. Just if you leave likes and comments on what you'd like me to do next or suggestions, or if not, then I'll just come up with more by myself. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe.